I can't help but thinking when I look around, everybody here, there really must be nothing going on in Tel-Aviv tonight. Boring Monday night, so let's go to meditation. Oh, God, how did I forget about that? Just drank water. Oh well, forgive me. Yeah, I was wondering why there wasn't much traffic. The bus is empty. This is nice. Well, okay. Yeah, it's true, Tisha B'Av. You know, I mean, and I'm coming from Jerusalem. Gosh. Yeah, there's always something going on there. But you know, it makes me think about this whole thing about, you know, in August, and here it is, tomorrow's the 1st of August, right? And it's really the hottest time of the year here. I mean, it's hot. I went to the Dead Sea today. I know, it's stupid, right? But actually, I wasn't really masochistic. There's like some pools there. There's some Ain Matsok or something, I forget what it's called. Beautiful, like natural pools. Went swimming in. And as long as you're in the water, it's fine. Like, wow, I can deal with this. I was amazed. I could actually deal with this. You know, it was okay. I had so much aversion until I got there. The aversion disappeared because it was all in my expectation, it was all in my mind. Don't worry, I'll still have it tomorrow or the next time I plan on that. And I look at the temperature, I'm like, no way. And then, you know, that no way is an idea. The no way usually is not the reality. That's just one thing. But the reason I say it's really hot is because I think, if you can imagine, I think that they talk about the temple burning like for days. I mean, burning is like this huge fire. And it's so hot, and you can imagine the whole city really hot and people dying and burning and all that. And the image of burning has a really strong Dharma reference to it, you know, in the sense that where's the burning come from? Like that, one of the traditional interpretations of why the temple was destroyed was because of what they said, Lashon Hara, right? That people were like speaking badly to each other. You know, it was the Jews' fault. Like they just weren't good to each other, and they couldn't get together. The division, the anger, the hostility. So, now in this, whatever's good for you, I'm fine anyway. But what I'm trying to say here is that one of the Eightfold Path, okay, and is right speech, okay, right speech. It's like one of the paths, like one of the ways to achieve enlightenment is right speech, and one of the 5 precepts is not speaking untruth. And so, you know, speech is really important as a spiritual practice. It's not the result of your enlightenment. It's an expression of your enlightenment. Okay? Dogen says, you know, you don't practice to become enlightened. You practice because you are enlightened. Right? So he flips it. You know, a lot of times we think of practice as sort of a step ladder moving up so that we can get, you know, greater and greater awareness until at some point we just have that big view, you know, like going up a tower, and then you see everything clearly. Right? Well, the understanding from Dogen's point of view is that you actually start at the tower, but it's cloudy up there. It's cloudy. It's like that Basho haiku. And he says, oh, yeah, Mount Fuji in the rain. How interesting, right? He didn't actually see Mount Fuji. There's nothing to see. It was raining. You know, it was full of clouds. But he still says how interesting. So like, we're up there. We're already in the midst of enlightenment. But we're surrounded by clouds. What are those clouds? It's the clouds of our own, you know, my expectation that it's too hot to go to the Dead Sea, like I just can't do that. That's a cloud. It's a cloud. You know, sometimes the clouds serve us, and often they hinder us. And we have to know the difference. When the cloud is something that's going to offer shade, or it's going to create an obstacle so you don't see. Don't think that all clouds are bad, because that's just another judgment. That's another label of the clouds. Clouds are clouds. You know, and I'm using clouds as a metaphor for thoughts. Because before I was talking about sky mind, and it gets full of clouds. And those clouds are the activities of your mind that fill up the natural clarity. But you can be aware of them because the clarity is never, you know, erased. I mean, the clouds, it's infinite. So there, as many clouds as there are, there's more mind. There's more awareness. So clouds aren't the problem. You know, like when Suzuki Roshi said to a student who asked him, you know, I can't stop thinking during meditation. I'm so distracted. And he said, what's wrong with your thoughts? Like, what's wrong with your thoughts? It's not the thoughts problem. It's not the thoughts' fault that you're upset. Why are you upset at your thoughts? Oh, did the thoughts do something to you? Poor thoughts. Leave them alone. You know, stop picking on your thoughts. Stop blaming your thoughts. Yep, there's no blame. There's no blame to be had here. Imagine if we can let go of blame. What would your mind be like? You know, you have these things that disturb you. You have these things that you like. What would it be like if you just take all blame away? I mentioned before to somebody about this, one of my favorite EQ haikus. He has these one-liners. And he said, I try to be good. And all that results is that I feel more guilty. Now, he was a monk. I try to be good, and you know, all that happens is that I end up feeling more guilty. Yeah, well, that's a human reaction, isn't it? Because it seems like we can't live up to the standards that we're carrying. Where are those standards from? I mean, you comparing yourself to the Buddha? Where's the Buddha? I can't sit that still. 12 hours. 24/7. Yeah, who do we compare ourselves to? Well, whoever you do, you're going to end up on the, you know, losing side, no matter what. Even if it's somebody who makes you feel good about yourself, you're still going to end up on the losing side. So we compare ourselves to like enlightened masters, and we say like, I'm so screwed up. Like, wait a second. Do I compare myself to their years of practice? And how much I've devoted? How many lifetimes I've gone through doing this? Yeah. So when we think about the Buddha, and we think not only did he spend 6 years like in the forest doing all these crazy stuff, and then he sat, but even before he went in these 6 years, there was like all the stories, the Jakarta stories of like his past lives. I mean, how many lifetimes did he go through trying to improve himself? And even if you don't want to consider reincarnation, which is optional, you don't have to, but reincarnation in this very life, meaning from moment to moment, how many times was he, you know, trying to be clear? So we don't compare to the end result. We can look to the process as a type of motivation. It's like, yeah, if he spent so long practicing and finally he got there, well, actually, you can see that to your credit, that you're here after relatively so little practice. No matter how many years you've been doing it, it is little. Okay. That's a motivation, by the way. It's not. But the point I was bringing up Tisha B'Av and the burning is that, you know, there's the fire sermon, the famous one where he says, the world is on fire. You know, the world is on fire. The Buddha says, the world is on fire. And what is this fire, then, he asks. Okay, and then he goes through the whole list. It's, you know, the fire of greed, the fire of passion, the fire of desire, the fire of the senses, the fire of the eyes, the fire of the ears, the fire of, you know, the taste, the fire of touch. The senses that create all these fires. And what is fire here is, you know, the fire of attachment and aversion. Okay? They're called the three poisons sometimes, or the three fires. They're also called the three fires. What are these fires that burn? They burn you, you know, even if it's ice. Even if it's cold, you get a cold burn. Okay? Either way, you're going to get burned. Meaning you're going to suffer and get hurt by the fire of attachment and aversion and a delusion. Okay? What is a delusion? The delusion is the thing on the outside, if I'm attached to it, is going to give me lasting happiness. Or the other delusion is the thing on the outside, if I have aversion to it, is going to really make me unhappy. The wisdom, to cut through that delusion is to know that nothing is responsible for your happiness or unhappiness apart from your own mind. There is no external condition that is going to give you lasting happiness or unhappiness. You can just pick out your favorites and you will find somebody with it who is still hoping for something else. Whether it's a spiritual external or whether it's a material one, no matter what. Okay? Because even if it makes you happy in the immediate, just keep it going and see what happens. The third noble truth, which is called Nirodha. Nirodha means to extinguish. Extinguishing the fires that are burning, our minds. And what does it mean to burn your mind? It just means you're experiencing dukkha in a deep way. You're experiencing suffering. So extinguishing those fires. And that's what practice is about. So we're not looking in order to gain some enlightenment. You already have it. But you also suffer. So if you can extinguish the fires of suffering, your natural mind is, the clouds part and it's revealed. We're not trying to create an enlightened mind. We're trying simply to end suffering. Okay? This is the Buddhist path. Buddha says, I teach one thing only, suffering and the end of suffering. Now that, of course, we can count is two. It's not one. And the Buddha could count two, right? But why did he say two? Like one? I teach one thing? Because to really understand suffering is to understand the way to end suffering. It's one thing. Okay? Knowing suffering is at the same time to really know its end. And that's why we don't flinch, meaning we don't turn away from it. The only way out is through. So this is the sort of the brave warrior, spiritual warrior that we need to become in this practice. That's why sitting is not a passive thing. It's like, I'm going to face my shit. Like, I'm going to face it. Okay? I'm going to sit here and face my demons. And in Tibetan, this is like one of the beautiful things in the Tibetan tradition, is they took those demons and they gave them images. Mara and these crazy demons, if you ever look at a tanker, are there any tankers around here? No, this is too Theravada for that. So, look at a tanka and you'll see these great, scary images, skulls and bones and crazy, scary things. Because those are manifestations of your own mind. Those demons exist in your mind just like the Buddha does. If we see them as external things to pray not to come or pray to come, we've turned Buddhism into what's called, idol worship, Avodah, right? You can do that and be Buddhist. Many do. But if you see every image as a manifestation of your own mind, then you have what to do, you have what to work on. Then you can consider the power of this demon and say, okay, how is he or she controlling me? Not as an external force, but then as an internal force. Okay, an internal condition that I need to fully acknowledge in my sitting. And that's why I say you don't flinch, you don't turn away. You sit here, okay, and you don't enter into battle. Okay? You don't enter into battle. What did Dalai Lama said? A stranger is a friend I haven't met yet. So, meet your demons and see what happens. It's just like that 45 degrees, in the Dead Sea. That was my enemy. Until I met her. And she was lovely. If I had water. Now the point is, don't forget the water, okay? What is the water? The water is your practice. Okay? The water is your practice. You can't just go straight into your demons and say, what do we say for a duel or a touche or something? Okay, I'm gonna swashbuckling meditator. No. Okay. Your practice, your water to extinguish the water of your practice to extinguish the fires of your attachments and aversions is the kindness and compassion that you bring into your awareness. Right? When you say, yes, I actually love you. Demon. Can you love your demons? Right? And see what happens is the demon will be so surprised. Like, what? I'm so unlovable. Nobody's ever loved me before. Sit down. Sit with me. Right? Have a seat. You know? There's lots of room here in my mind. But initially we're just afraid because we're so used to the image of, you know, the threat. Whatever that threat is going to be. Okay? And they're long conditioned. I'm not saying this is something quick. You just say, okay, I'm going to love my demons. And suddenly you're having a great relationship. Everyone's in the room and you pass around the water and saying, drink deeply and you'll go out. No. The demons have been conditioned from our mind from birth or before that. Okay? I mean, the conditioning goes way back. Just like the patterns of our mind. You know, you can be aware of a pattern. There's a sort of sometimes expectation, mistaken expectation, unfortunate expectation in meditation that, yeah, if I'm aware of it for a little bit, it'll go away. Well, you might be aware of that for years. As Suzuki Roshi said, you know, the problems that you're experiencing now will continue for the rest of your life. Okay? The demons that have been causing you so much fear, well, you know what? They're moving in. Or they already were, they're just coming out of the closet. Right? They're not hiding anymore. Okay? Okay. So you start to see, well, you know, this demon also is sometimes cute and flawed and maybe even a little bit human.
Can I ask?
Yeah, of course.
Can you maybe elaborate what does it mean to drink tea with the demon? Because if I take, for example, anger, when you're angry on someone, so אני אדבר בעברית פשוט יותר נוח לזה. מה זה אומר? כי אני אמור... אוקיי, אני רואה שיש כעס מאוד גדול כלפי מישהו, ואז מה זה אומר לשתות איתו תה? כי במובן מסוים אני כן שופט את הכעס הזה בתור משהו לא חיובי. ואולי אני אנסה להבין מאיפה הוא הגיע. אבל כן יש משהו בי שהיה, אם אני קנה, יש משהו בי שלא היה רוצה לכעוס על מישהו. ואני מרגיש בסדר עם הרצון הזה במובן מסוים. מתוך אולי הבנה יותר עמוקה שנגיד עכשיו שאני לא כועס, אז קל לי להגיד את זה, אוקיי, אז הבן אדם פועל בגלל תנאים ונסיבות, ובעצם מה שהכעס שלי הוא איזה אגו יותר עמוק, או כאילו קצת, יש פה דברים שגרמו את זה לשד להופיע, אולי אני לא צריך לקבל אותו, אלא, לא יודע, להבין לא לתת לו אוכל, לא להשאיר פה את האוכל, שבגללו הנמלים הגיעו. אז לאו דווקא לקבל את הנמלים, אולי להיזהר לו להשאיר אוכל לפעם הבאה. אז מה זה אומר להזמין אותו לתה?
Yeah. So, a couple of things. We're not necessarily inviting them for tea. Okay, that's something different. Now, being friends with your enemy does not necessarily mean you are going to socialize with them. Okay, it means that you're going to recognize them as flawed individuals with some of the same hopes, dreams, and problems that you have. But it doesn't mean you're going to, on the surface, on the relative level, like them. Okay? That's part of our human characters. You know, there are people we like, people we don't like. We have chemistry, we don't have chemistry. That's just part of the surfaces of who and what we are. But when we're looking at, for instance, when anger comes up, okay, or irritation, or whatever negative emotion, hindrance, it comes up so fast in such a conditioned way. It does not leave time for the type of analysis that, or contemplation that's saying, yeah, you know, I'm angry at him, and he's got these conditions and everything, and going back to his past, and you know, I can see his suffering underneath that. There's like, you know, you're the model. I'm just like, yeah. I mean, it doesn't. There's no time for that. Okay, so what do we do? This is the water aspect of our practice. Okay, the water aspect of the practice is when we're trying to put out fires, we need to be prepared. A lot of our practice is preparation for when we do encounter hindrances. Okay, like being a fireman. 99% of the time you're training. 1% of the time you're actually, you know, out there doing a fire. But most of it is training. So what we're doing is we're always preparing ourselves for those moments so that we're ready. And what is the main preparation? Main preparation is not just mindfulness meditation. Many people are very mindful, and then as soon as something like is unexpected, they lose it. I think it is so common. Mindfulness meditation without right intention is not going to do the job. Okay, it's a fire truck without the water. You'll get to the fire, you'll open up the hose, and nothing will come out. Alright, because you missed the real preparation, which is the waters of compassion and loving kindness. That is what has to be in the background of our sitting. We sit in order to end suffering, not only our own, but even if we are just doing our own, it's because we care enough. We love and have compassion for ourselves. And that's a good start to extend it. But the real preparation is not just being able to sit longer and better and more aware, but it's every time you sit, you know why you're doing it. You're doing it not just for a clear mind. The clear mind is for the sake of bodhicitta, becoming Buddha in order to end suffering. And you want to end suffering because suffering hurts you. You feel bad that others suffer. And you love them enough because they're part of you and part of this essential world. They are essential parts of this world. You know? And why? Because they're here. That's all. So we care. But we're cultivating loving kindness and compassion, and that is the real preparation for the real waters for putting out the fires. And that's why I think then when we look at anger, the first reaction is, wow, it's really painful for me. You recognize your own suffering. Never mind the reason that somebody else causes you, triggers you to get angry. But again and again, what our meditation practice is all about is turning the eye within. It's looking within, so that we're no longer just reacting to external triggers. So there's, this person who made me angry is an external trigger. And it may be a valid one. Like, why did you do that? I mean, wrong. So, yeah, you're let's say you're causing harm, or you're being really rude, or you're causing some harm. Like, that causes, my reaction then may be anger. Like, you gotta stop that. First and foremost, though, before I have any wisdom in how to react, I have to have inner awareness of what I'm truly experiencing. And that inner awareness is motivated by compassion and care, because I want to relieve my own suffering. So I see it as really an integrative practice. You know, the 4 Brahmaviharas are really the, you know, these 4 legs, you know, kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. That's the real chair we're sitting on. And then the, you know, the actual chair itself is our mindful awareness practice. But the legs.
Can you repeat, please? 4.
Yeah, the 4 Brahmaviharas, which are called the divine abodes or the great qualities, these supreme qualities that are at the core of our practice, are loving kindness. And loving kindness is simply the wish that all beings will be happy, lasting, true happiness. Happiness, you know? And that's something that is important to remind ourselves, because when the Buddha teaches about the end of suffering, he doesn't mean we'll just be like these indifferent, I don't suffer, I don't feel, I'm just existing. No. The end of suffering is a joyful place. It's a happy place. Okay? It's a happy place. You know, this is going to be pretty funny. Well, maybe not. But it's kind of silly. I was with my son, he's 7 years old, we were in the car. And he's my kid, okay? He had to pee. He had to pee so badly. When are we going to stop? Gotta pee. And I said, okay, we just gotta stop somewhere and he has to pee. So he gets out and pees, and then he's thirsty. Right? Then he wants to drink. And then he drank. And I asked him, I said, Sheva, what do you think, you know, is better? Peeing when you really need to pee, or drinking when you're really thirsty? Which is like, you know, a better experience. These are the sort of conversations you have with a 7-year-old. And he thought, man, at first, his first reaction was, oh, pee. And then he thought for a second. It was like, took a second, he said, no, both. Really both of them. Really both of them. I'm like, yeah. True. You know, what would they used to say when the Buddha said it, and at the end of it they say like soha or something. Yeah, and it's true. So, yeah, we end the suffering, but then drink the water. You gotta pee and drink. You end the suffering, but that's not it. Okay, that seems like we're indifferent, and that gives Buddhism, the Dharma practice, kind of bad name. That it's all about suffering and just getting out of suffering, unless we also have at the core of the practice, and that's why they're there, the Brahmaviharas, the great qualities of an enlightened life, which are loving kindness, wishing for happiness, true happiness for oneself and all beings, you know, compassion, karuna, which is wishing that all beings do not suffer and the causes of suffering have been, you know, extinguished. So, be happy. Don't suffer. Sympathetic joy. Also a challenging one, under-taught in most Buddhist places. Underemphasized. Sympathetic joy. Sympathies for somebody else. Joy. Their joy. I'm happy you got promoted. I didn't, but I'm happy you got promoted. Can we say that honestly? Yes. That is the practice. Okay? I'm happy your book got published. Really happy. You know, can we say it? That is the practice. And it doesn't matter if it's, here's a real important point of the 4 Brahmaviharas. And this we have to take very, very to heart. These are not emotions. They're not like when you say I'm feeling loving kindness or compassion, it doesn't mean that you have to be, oh, I feel you, I feel for you, or I feel your pain. No, it's just like, you can also be, like, there are Buddhists of all different stripes. Some are more intellectual, some are more feeling, some will really feel the pain, some will intellectually recognize it and say, you know, that's got to stop. Like, you know, you can be a Buddhist lawyer and just like, I'm working to end these, you know, I'm working to end this discrimination because I know it's wrong. And it can be an intellectual understanding, but you're motivated by compassion. It doesn't need to be an emotive thing. It doesn't need to be an emotional thing. Because if we depend on our emotions, it's like an artist depending on inspiration. He or she won't produce anything. But any artist who has produced works, 9 to 5, or meaning from 9 at night to 5 in the morning, they are, working. That's their job. And yeah, 90% of it is in the trash heap, but that 10 or 5% is a result of all that practice. And they're not just saying, okay, I feel the muse. No, there's no waiting to end suffering. There's no waiting to increase happiness. Waiting for what? Feel inspired? Well, look around you. That should be inspiration enough. Look in your own life. That's inspiration enough. Okay? So, the Brahmaviharas are the core of a practice which awakens our meditation practice into a kind, compassionate, wise path. Really. Otherwise, we're going to become... Yeah.
You said 3 or 1, I think.
Yeah, no, I didn't get to the 4th yet.
Okay.
I think you said 2.
I only said 2. I said 2.5, actually. Because I didn't talk about sympathetic joy. Like loving kindness, may you be happy. Sympathetic joy, may be free of suffering. In all its causes. The subtext to that is, and may you realize that all your suffering comes from your own mind. Okay? It comes first and foremost from your own mind. Right? And then when you realize that, you can deal with the suffering on the outside more skillfully. Okay? It doesn't mean that if you actually see a burning building, that you say to the people, it's burning, but the pain is just in your head. No, that's not compassionate. Right? That's not compassion. You deal with your mind, and other people deal with their minds. You're not them. What you have to deal with are all the causes of suffering, which may include an actual burning building, or may include whatever, right? Like, for instance, one of the stories I like, a real simple one, is when Suzuki Roshi they had in front of their meditation hall, they were barefooted, barefoot, when they go in. See what happens when you're in Israel too long. I don't even know how to say barefooted. Barefooted. I said it. But there was a little pool for washing your feet. And beside the pool, so he washed his feet, and then his attendant was standing right there, and as soon as he turned around, he handed him a towel. And Suzuki Roshi just looked at him and said, that was the activity of all the Buddhas. And the attendant was like, what? Like, I just gave you a towel. And he saw the confusion on his face, and replied, it's simply seeing what someone needs and giving it to him. That is the activity of all the Buddhas. Right? You're not there to work on their minds. They're there to work on their minds. You're here to work on your mind. And to give the towel to someone who has wet hands. Right? Or the bowl of food, or the kind word, or the ear for someone who needs to talk, okay? Or, at one retreat center I was at, in the kitchen, there was a big sign over the food table. It said, give way. So nice. Everybody's like lining up. And almost pushy. Until you're reminded at that sign, give way. Give way means to surrender. Let someone, go first. When we say, like in driving, you have the right of way, right? The right of way, it means I can go first because, I don't know, whatever. It doesn't work in Israel. But I know in Canada, if there's like a stop sign, you have a stop sign with 4 stops. Like 4 people come. Who goes first? It could take hours. You go. You go. You go. You go. So, the way it works is whoever pulled up first has the right of way. But it means you have to look around. When you're driving, you have to there's no cell phone. It won't work with cell phones. Because you have to actually be looking at the other people, and you notice whoever came first, and who came second, and who came third, right? So you give way, whoever was first. So in that dining hall, it said give way as a type of general practice, which basically is a nice reminder that you're going to get your food. Does it really matter if 30 seconds, extra seconds pass, right? But if you had to push to save those 30 seconds, then it really does matter. Okay, it matters to your own mind of becoming or reinforcing a pattern of aggression and impatience, right? We're always working with our mind. The outside world are the teachers and the bells that are ringing and teaching in order to tell us, you know, this is a Dharma. A Dharma is a teaching, okay? This is a Dharma. What is it here to teach? So that's an attitude that we can have in general. The Brahmaviharas, which I didn't even think of speaking tonight, haven't gotten to anything I wanted to say. That's okay. Loving kindness, sympathetic joy, compassion. I'm already mixing them up. Sympathetic joy. I'm so happy for your happiness. So happy for your happiness. You know, and the funny thing is, there's been some serious research on people's sense of well-being as compared to whether they receive something or whether someone close to them receives something. And if you find the $10 on the ground, you feel happy. If your friend calls you up and says, "Oh wow, I found $10 on the ground. I was so happy. I was able, I went out for lunch and had a good time." Your happiness, the residual is that which lasts. It actually lasts longer than the joy you get from finding it for yourself. They did this sort of research with 4,500 people. They did these research on asking them, how do you feel, and then giving news and news of other people getting stuff, and especially if you knew the person. It really changed how many steps beyond, because we tend to react more strongly to people, we know and are close to. So, but they found that even if there's a real location relation to it, not so much how well you know the person, but just the fact that if it's your neighbor, they found your neighbor has good news, for some whatever. You see the neighbor pulls in with a new car, and they're happy about it. You're happy about it, okay? But if you see someone in another block with a new car, you think, God, I need a new car. You don't necessarily think that with your next door neighbor. You think it with the person down the block. Because there's a relationship of sympathetic joy that can naturally happen. And it does happen. Okay, it does happen. And that's a quality that we can start to cultivate by identifying how it is possible to increase the joy we feel for other people's joy. Right? Yeah, actually quite nice, because you didn't have to do anything for it. Come on, I really need you to succeed. Do it. Go for it. Huh? Yeah. And and the fourth one is equanimity. Okay, equanimity. Now, equanimity simply means, being able to accept everything that comes your way, as here. Okay? Meaning, you see it. You see it, and I don't even want to say you accept it, but you accept your reactions to it. If I just say equanimity means that you accept everything that comes your way, that's already a false expectation. Because you could be sitting there and there could be sounds going on in your meditation or thoughts coming up, and you feel aversion, you feel attachment, and you feel aversion, you feel attachment, and some delusion saying, yeah, I'll be happier if that sound turns off. If that car alarm goes off, I'll be, my meditation will be better. Okay, that's the delusion. The aversion is to the car alarm. The delusion is that it'll make my meditation better, right? And the attachment is to quiet. So all that's going on in the same moment of relationship to some external factor. Okay? Now, equanimity does not mean, car alarm. Peaceful. Peaceful car alarm. No, that's not equanimity. Okay? That's not equanimity. Equanimity is a very well-developed awareness where you not only acknowledge that there's the car alarm, but you even more strongly go closer to home. And you are aware of your reactions. Wow, I really don't like this. There's so much commentary, thought, and stress, and I feel it in my body, and I feel these muscles tensing. I'm just saying it out loud. You're not saying that in your meditation, but I'm just saying the sort of awareness is looking at everything you are experiencing in relation to some external factor that is disturbing you. Okay? So equanimity turns the focus more on the inner experience, and the acceptance then is not for the car alarm. The acceptance is for the inner experience. So equanimity, in essence, is cultivating an acceptance of yourself where you're at in this moment. And that type of acceptance, okay, as we can see, these 4 Brahmaviharas are closely linked, because that type of equanimity acceptance is based on compassion and kindness. Right? You can only accept what you're going through if your meditation is based on compassion and love. Right? But if you don't first kind of cultivate or sit saying, I'm doing this because I care. I care about my mind. I care about others. I care about the world. Okay? I want to be happier and I want to suffer less. Look, we're all here for that, right? Come on. We want to be happier. We want to suffer less. And knowing that equanimity is a royal road to help get us there. Okay, that's the path we follow, the path of equanimity, but it's paved by, by the gold of loving kindness and compassion. So that acceptance we're having is not kind of a different one, like, yeah, everything's good, it's all good, it's all good. No, it's not all good. Actually, it's not all good. It's not all bad either. It is, and if it's painful for me, I accept it, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry you're experiencing this. There's nothing I can do about it right now. And knowing that there's nothing I can do about it right now, I do something. And what I do is that sense of acceptance. Okay? Self-acceptance. It's self-acceptance. Again, you're not accepting the car alarm. You're not accepting the building that's on fire. You're accepting your inner turmoil and all the conditioned responses that are coming up in relationship to the externals. Right? And from that sense of finding some peace within yourself, even when the crazy mind, monkey mind will continue. Okay, your problems, as Roshi said, will continue for the rest of your lives. You will have these same patterns of thought. You will be 80 years old and say, like, I've been doing this for a long time and still? Well, yeah. But with that still is like the smile of like, still. Still. I know you so well. I know you so well. And every time you visit, I accept that you've arrived. I don't serve you tea. What's the difference here between acceptance and hosting? Okay? Someone knocks, difficult guest. Hi, how can I help you? You need something right now? Tries to get in the room. And you're like, you know what? I see you, but really, I'm glad you came. Move on. Move on, okay? And just move on. I'm not going to sit you down. I'm not going to serve you tea. Right? I'm going to show you the door. Okay? I'm going to show you the door in a kind way. Right? I'm going to show you the door. I'm going to listen to you for a few moments. You need to cathart. Okay. You need to vent. All right. I'll listen. All right. You feel better now? Okay. Enjoy your day. Now, but I'm not going to say, oh, you know, tell me all about it. I mean, that's hosting. So again, identify the difference between hosting and answering the door. Accepting. Okay? You keep the door open. Right? That's the thing. You keep the door open. And then other friends come, and then the person who's like difficult will get kind of embarrassed. Because like some nicer people around, and he feels kind of embarrassed, so he goes away. Alright? Keep the door open. Yeah, please.
It seems to me that we have a tendency to persecute. We have a notion of having to be vicious in regard with our darker sides or demons, so to speak. And we are vicious towards ourselves and towards other people's vicious sides. And it seems to be a kind of cycle. And it seems that when you stop persecuting the persecutor, when you can observe the demon and not demonize it, when the hanger stops hanging the hanger, and so on, then the movement of thought starts to relax, and then there's a sense of acceptance and compassion, and something calms down, and there is something in us that calls, you know, this mighty struggle, violent struggle against our less nice sides, morality, whereas morality is the opposite, real conscious. And what I find in myself is that even when there is a predator inside, it's a real predator. It's somehow connected with how I think about myself and the world. And when my attitude to this predator is not the attitude of a predator, I'll eat you, you predator. When I'm not doing this, when I'm seeing this animal as it is, even hugging it, something in it calms down, and then what we call the ego or the predator, it starts to dissolve, and then you get to see that it's just, in a sense, just thoughts. It doesn't really exist.
Yeah. Our ideas. You know, I'm thinking of the Tibetan tankas, and the demons are all considered enlightened energy. They're actually considered enlightened energy. They're manifestation of enlightened energy that we then misuse and turn into like violence. But it's actually the same energy. Okay, you can take anger, and it's like a force. Why do people use anger so much, like more than almost anything else? Because it's alive. It's alive. It's a force of life. Now imagine if you take that same live, force of life, livingness, aliveness, that same aliveness, and simply you channel it, the same energy, into creativity or into, whatever type of work that you're dealing with. whether it's practice or, outside of practice. That same energy could be, magnificent and really powerful. But instead, we just, become the horse and not the rider. So, yeah, one of the ways is to understand that everything you experience is a manifestation of enlightened energy, because it's a part of your life. To be alive is to be alive as an enlightened being, and therefore everything that you experience is an expression of that enlightened energy, unfortunately often filtered through some delusion. So seize that energy and redirect it. Don't try to suppress it, right? But rather to say, wow, this is powerful. I'm going to use it well.
Relating to the feet, letting the feet, the way I understand when you say like the invite for tea, the guests that come and the stories, it's like the Buddha inviting Mara to tea. The way I understand it is the difference between if there's anger, I notice there's anger, then what naturally would happen is maybe some judgment about the anger and why am I angry, why should I be angry? And then it starts this process of starting to understand why anger even aroused. And then when I understand inviting for tea is actually not going there yet. Maybe I'll have to. Maybe it's a smart thing to do to understand why did the ants come and not to leave the food there. But before that, it's just like, oh, there's anger here. This is an opportunity to experience this thing called anger. Actually, there's so many types of different anger. And that's for me what I understand about tea. It's like, oh, anger. Okay, it's here for a while. Let's see what happens here. Like, I don't need to react to anger to see that. I can just go back to my body and see what it is, see what thoughts come. Then I react with the world even differently, not with anger. And then it becomes even more interesting because you see what anger, how does the anger react here? And then sometimes it's too much, and then you might say, thank you for coming. It's time to leave. I can't. Not today. And then other times it's even like sitting for tea and saying, oh, you know what? It's a great thing you came. Anger. There's so much energy and liveliness. Next time let's do art together. Let's do something different. That would be nice. That's how I understand that.
Yeah.
When you say like this, have it be like you.
Yeah.
And specifically anger in relationships, I often say that. Then when you get angry, it's like, oh wow, great! That means that's like something's like, if we can make each other angry, that's an amazing thing. So we're indifferent if we don't get it. So it's also like that energy. It's amazing that we can use it.
Yeah. But I'm also aware of what Thich Nhat Hanh wrote once, where he said, like, expressing anger is rehearsing it for the next time. So, the anger is there, and it doesn't mean that we express it. It means that we're aware of it. It's our bell. It's our mindfulness bell, but it doesn't become a reason to express it. That's already turning that energy into the form that is not in our control. If we can recognize it, turn the eye inward. You recognize it as that energy, and then let's do something maybe more helpful with it or more kind with it. But expressing anger does not mean that because I'm aware that I'm angry and I'm going to express it, that it's a mindful activity. It's, as he said, it's just creating a condition that he said rehearsing. It's this creating a condition that you're going to keep on expressing it and not be using it from right intention. So yeah, there's a lot to notice. Last question.
I thought it's more thought than a question. I thought about you talk about sympathetic joy, and it's really excites me because I thought that in the chanting we say many good things on the Buddha and we bow for him, and I ask myself many times, why do I do this? And now I think that I can just say that I'm really happy for him that he got so happy, got real happiness, and he also choose to taught us how to get to this, and it's really amazing.
That's nice. That's nice. Yeah, that's a pretty high level. I'd be like, I'm so happy for you, Buddha. But wait, if you're a Buddha, then you don't need my happiness. So like, why am I happy? I should be happy for me. But that's a high level. All right, ladies and gentlemen. I'm happy to announce this evening has ended. Just because it has. Let's finish with 30 seconds though, to just let everything pass. So every time we take a moment to sit, your practice doesn't have to be a long thing. It doesn't have to be 10, 15, half an hour. It can be a few breaths where you come back to the wonderful simplicity of sitting here and doing nothing, and remembering and reminding yourself of why you're doing this. You want to be happy. You want to be free of suffering. You want to share happiness with others. And you want to accept yourself as you are. Thus we sit